Hey folks, Daniel Car Fix here, and today I'm working on my bike. This is a 2004 Honda VTX 1800. I love this bike. This bike is an absolute beast. It's got so much torque. It's really pleasant to ride. And I'm working on the rear brakes, and I'm going to show you the rear brake caliper. I got it out. Long story short, what I did is the worst nightmare, for anyone that works on their own stuff. So I stripped this bolt way in there. Actually, this is not the bolt. The bolt that came out in pieces, right? This is a new bolt, and it was just seized up in there. I don't remember over torquing it the last time I replaced the brake pads, but I certainly did something wrong. I did not put anti-seize, so I'm gonna put some copper anti-seize this time. I got it. And, and this is not the first time that I try to get it out. This is the second time. In my first time, you can see I broke the extractor, the tip of the extractor inside the caliper. It was an absolute nightmare. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to save this caliper, see if it's still gonna work, because if you buy this online, you have to buy the whole assembly, and it costs like $160. Even though you only need the caliper, you need to buy every single piece in the assembly. So now that I got the bolt out, I really did a number on the threads. You can see here. So I got two taps. One is called a taper tap or a taper tap. You can see it has less threads in the beginning, so you don't cross thread the threads here while you're getting the top threads done. So this is basically to get the top threads and the mid threads, the middle threads done. And then once you go all the way with this tap, you're going to do the bottom. This is called a bottoming tap, and you can see it's got a lot of threads here at the end, so you do the bottom of the orifice here. So I'm gonna get this going. Let's see if this works. Worst case scenario, this is not salvageable, and I'm gonna have to buy a new one. Okay, so I'm starting with a taper tap, and I screwed it in as much as I could by hand. So I know it caught the thread, and what you want to do is to try to screw it in as much as you can by hand before you start exerting any force with the handle. Make sure it's in there as much as possible by hand. That way you just minimize the risk of cross threading it. Now I'm just gonna try to get the tap handle on it and start just working the thread with the tap handle. So I got the tap handle on. I'm not even going to use the lock yet, because at this point I'm just starting to re-thread this. You want to be gentle. You want to just try to follow the natural thread, right, and twist it with the minimum force, so you kind of wiggle it a little bit. I'm just using my tip of my thumbs here to twist this tap handle and to really work the threads. So yeah, it caught the threads at this point. I know it's just twisting nicely here. It's gonna of course require more force towards the end. So let's see. Well, yeah, now I want to put that lock in. Certainly now it's time. So let me lock this in place. It's going to be locked. Let me see how it is down here. Yep, it's not even down there yet. Okay. Because it was so easy, I just went all the way down. But normally what you want to do is go, you know, up, down a little bit, back, and down a little bit. So I'm not having trouble with most of the thread, so I didn't mess it up that much. This is good. So in the test that I'm going to make sure that this is going to work, it's, you know, I'm going to use a torquemeter and I'm going to tie the screw down. Yeah, but you see, it's still, you know, shaved some metal, and this is aluminum. This is really soft, and you can see, and that's why the tap has, you know, it's not contiguous, right? It's got these holes here, so it holds the metal shavings here, as you can see. So this is good news. It's very good news. As easily, yeah. That's in. Now I got the bottoming tap in. Same thing, right? You want to be delicate, and so you get the initial threads. All right, so I'm not even exerting a lot of force. Okay, now I'm going to start going back and forth. I feel a little bit more pressure. I'm just going to go back and forth. Okay, so now that I've cleaned it, this is what it looks like. It still has some damage in the, you know, beginning of the threads, but it's got a nice, beautiful thread, and this screw just goes way deep in there. If I can find it, it just goes way deep in there. It like sits here, so it's gonna have a lot of thread. So what I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna test this. Now what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna make sure that the, you know, even though I rethreaded, the threads are strong enough to hold the torque that Honda says these need to have. So it says it needs to have 13 pounds of torque. So I've set my torquemeter now for 13 pounds. Let's see if it holds. Oh yeah. You hear that? That's the sound of victory. Okay, so now I know that even though, you know, I got a lot of metal shavings out from this and I redid the threads, it still holds 13 pounds of torque, and it sits where it's supposed to, so it's snug here, the pad pin, so this is going to be safe. This is great news. So now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to mount this on a bike and get the pads on it and bleed my brakes. So I put my bike back together, it went out, I tested the brakes, and it's working fine. Before you go out and, you know, you apply the brakes, you have to make sure that you press the front brake several times and you press the rear brake several times, just so it's you know, it's going to work. Otherwise you're just going to press it till the end and the brake's not going to work. So you want to make sure that you do that before you go out. And then the rear brake pad, and I've already got my bag placed there. What you want to do, you want to bed the rear brake pad, and what it means, you have to go from a 40-50 mile per hour and apply the brake moderately until you reach 10 miles per hour. So it starts the bedding process and it doesn't overheat and damages the brake pad. So you want to bed the pads before you go out, and it's still going to take about 100 miles or so for the rotor to match the pad, the new pad anyway. So you want to make sure you take it easy on the first few hundred miles with the brake, and that's it. It's working. I hope this video was useful, and if you liked it, give it a thumbs up below. Thank you.